Vehicle buying in the digital world, brought to you by CarTrade, Carwale, and Bikewale. We're very pleased to have all of you join us this morning. And today's virtual event promises to provide engaging and informative sessions on this challenge facing our industry today, which is also rapidly evolving due to new digital trends. Before we start this morning, a couple of housekeeping announcements. All of you joining to view the session, please keep your audio on mute. We will take questions once a session is complete. Do send them to us on your chat box, and we'll endeavor to answer as many as time permits. Immediately after the inaugural session, we will move on to our panel discussion on changing landscape of automotive retail in an evolving mobility ecosystem with senior industry stalwarts. Once again, I'm very pleased to welcome all of you this morning to the Future Retailer, Vehicle Buying in the Digital World. And it's now my pleasure to invite Mr. Deepangshu Sharma, Editor, Mobility Outlook, to welcome all our guests today. Over to you, Deepangshu.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Atul. Greetings, everyone. The automotive industry in general has been witness to a plethora of changes in the last couple of years, both before the pandemic hit us and, of course, during its unwanted reign. One of the most significant disruptions in our lives has been the knowledge we have acquired now about how to do business digitally, that then at this point a couple of years ago. The future of automotive retail is one such area that has seen widespread disruptions. The car buying process, for example, has evolved with a lot more focus on the buyer. There is enough to believe that customers love the seamless process of buying a vehicle. The approach now is much more customer-focused, adopting a hybrid model that combines both offline and online processes to deliver a seamless experience. Digital car buying platforms are becoming commonplace as they enhance the end user's experience. Secondly, there's a lot of focus on selling an experience to customers and not just a vehicle. Retailers globally are also creating a digital ecosystem that brings together various interconnected services, including cashless parking and car sharing. What is clear, though, is that while the traditional model of auto retail will continue to be prevalent, technology has become a primary component in automotive retail because it allows customers to shop the way they want. Ladies and gentlemen, it is this very change that we propose to discuss in this two-day conference called The Future Retailer, with the overall theme of vehicle buying in a phygital world. I, along with my team at Mobility Outlook, thank you all for joining us for this conference. Over the next 2 days, we have curated a program that will look at every area of automotive retail and will bring to you perspectives from senior leaders of the sector and experts from related domains. It is indeed my special privilege and honor to welcome our guests of honor in this inaugural session. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sanjay Bhan, Head Global Business at Hero MotoCorp. Mr. Bhan, welcome. Mr. Vinkesh Gulati, President, Federation of Automobile Dealers Associations, FADA, and also Mr. Shashank Srivastava, Executive Director, Sales and Marketing, Maruti Suzuki India, who would be joining us around 10:45 this morning. In this session, we would also have a detailed perspective on the automotive retail sector by Mr. Harshvardhan Sharma, Head Auto Retail Practice at the Nomura Research Institute. But before I invite Harsh for his presentation, it is with great pleasure and honor that I invite our Chairman, Managing Director, and Chief Executive Officer of CarTrade Tech Limited, Mr. Vinay Sanghi, for his welcome address. I welcome each one of you once again to the Future Retailer 2021. Vinay, over to you.
Thank you, Deepangshu, and thank you for everybody joining on this Thursday morning for this session. I also want to give a special thank you to Mr. Bhan, Vinkesh, my friend, Harsh, Nomura. I don't know if you know, but Nomura also are bankers for the IPO. Thank you for joining today. Shashank-san, who's not yet here but will join in. Thank you for all of you for taking this time out as well. Mr. Bhan and Shashank-san, you really are iconic figures in the industry and torch bearers, I would say, on the two-wheeler and the four-wheeler industry. So we're all looking forward, especially to hear from you as well. Thank you very much for joining in, everybody. it's a great time to be chatting. I just think we are all going through, the auto industry itself goes through, a crossroads. And we as a company ourselves have just gone through a major milestone. Some of you may know we listed as the first automotive internet platform a month ago. It's been a fantastic journey. It started 10, 11 years ago. In fact, when we started this journey in the company, a lot of us just thought at some point when you start a company, at some point you have a dream that you might list. What I want to tell all of people joining in today, that dreams do become realities, and you should never be afraid to dream, or you must always dare to dream, right? They do come true. So that's what's happened. It's a big milestone for us. I want to thank all the people who helped us make this possible, especially the consumers who come to our platform. 30 million of them come every month. All the manufacturers, dealer partners, banks, other stakeholders. You all are the reason why we are here. I also want to assure everybody that we're going to keep at it. It's been 10, 11 years, and keep the journey going, and keep building great products and quality services for all our customers. So just want to it's a big thank you for all of you for getting us here. When you look at the auto industry itself today, we've been through a very choppy last 5 years, especially in the car industry. I think there's been a very minimal growth over the last 5 years. Personally, I'm very, very optimistic in the car industry itself. When you have 20 to 23 cars per 1,000 people, there's only one direction to go. Ownership is on the rise, and I do see a massive, massive growth over the next 10 to 15 years. I'm very, very optimistic. The two-wheeler industry, India is the largest two-wheeler market in the world. So you probably see some changes and there's a big trend of moving towards clean energy and clean fuel. We've got to see how that plays out over the next 5 to 10 years, but we're all proud to be part of the two-wheeler industry in India. It's remarkable what the industry has delivered and achieved over the last 15, 20 years to get us here. Commercial vehicles have seen its own headwinds over the last 2 to 3 years, and now with the GDP back on track, with good movement of goods and services back on track, I'm optimistic over the next couple of years on seeing a big bounce back on the commercial vehicle side. But really, people ask, where are we today, and what is the impact of COVID been on the auto industry? I mean, my experience over the last year and a half has been that the lockdowns have been painful for the industry. Of course, the auto industry doesn't come into the category, at least the two-wheelers and passenger cars don't come into an essential activity. And during the lockdowns, things have generally been shut and painful. But I think what we've seen, and that shows the resilience of all of us here and our customers, that when lockdowns, move away and we get back to business, we saw that last year when lockdowns were removed. We've seen it this year again. The industry bounces back really quickly. We ourselves have seen that our traffic numbers, our auction numbers, all of them bounce back immediately as far as at the moment the lockdowns are over. And that's a very, very good scenario. So that's one big change we've seen, that things bounce back really quickly. The second big thing we've seen is this whole move from the consumer to move towards a more digital way of consumption, right? Which is because on a lot of the day-to-day activities, whether it is buying groceries or consuming food or anything else, they move to a digital format. I think they want to see that in the auto industry. And I think that's probably, it's very hard to have any positive impact on COVID, but that is probably one of the positive impacts, that you're seeing the consumer wanting to consume, or that behavioral change in moving towards a more digital way of consuming. And that's why this whole session of digital today. I think the third big change, which I'm very, which makes me excited being part of the industry, this whole move towards personal ownership, right? I think there is a drive and there is a need for consumers to personally own their transportation means, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very positive about that itself. These are big changes I see, but the good part, as I said, is post-lockdown, things have bounced back and we're coming to some level of normalcy across the industry. I also see 4 or 5 big mega trends going on in the automotive industry. I think the one thing we've all seen in the last couple of years is GST itself and simplification of GST on used vehicles. It's a massive opportunity for all of us, because it really means that a vehicle in Mumbai can be sold in Delhi as long as you get it re-registered and there is no GST on it again applicable, or the GST you paid can be set off, which is a massive opportunity for vehicle buyers and sellers. It just means that a vehicle which is being sold in one part of the country will probably fetch the best price it does in any part of the country. So it's an opportunity for everybody. I think this whole one registration the government's talking about is a move we all have to welcome. If we have one number, one country, It again allows movement of vehicles from one market to another market, which enables lots of opportunities and for the customer and for all businesses like ours. The scrappage policy, which has been in the works for a while, obviously leads to, again, a growth rate in the automotive industry. The whole drive towards clean fuel, clean energy, it's going to, again, whether it's distribution, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is, digital businesses, all are going to see opportunities here. And I think there could be another trend which you might see globally, not just here, around ownership sharing. You have ride sharing today, but ownership sharing is something, leasing. These are new trends we might see in the future. But these are macro trends in India and globally. I see with all these trends, I always see opportunities, right? I think for all of us here today, all stakeholders, whether you're a company like ours, you're a manufacturer, you're a dealer, you're a bank, for everyone, we see massive opportunity. Our focus is really, the company is really looking at this whole digital transformation, which is another mega trend in the auto industry. The way I look at our business and the way I look at the future is keeping the consumer in mind and saying, listen, if a consumer wants to buy a product, right, with a car or a two-wheeler or a used car, how does he come online? How does he first on his mobile device find a vehicle, whether it's on a manufacturer website, whether it's a dealer website, whether it's our website? How does he find his vehicle? How does he compare a vehicle? How does he choose a vehicle? How does he book a vehicle? And then once he's found his vehicle or selected his vehicle, how does he get a loan instantly disbursed to him from multiple banks making offers to him or approvals to him? How does he get the loan, his KYC online done? How does he get his loan disbursed to him in a minute of finding his vehicle? Once he gets his loan, how does he get an instant price for his old vehicle? How does he get the car or the difference of the booking amount paid between the vehicle he's selling and the loan he's getting? And then how the vehicle seamlessly given to him at the showroom of a dealership or at his house? How does that happen, right? And to me, that is really digital transformation in the car or the vehicle buying process. I see big investments coming from us there, but I also see big investments from all manufacturers, banks and dealers, and insurance companies, et cetera, coming there as well. And I will just hope sooner than later we see this complete, digital experience for a customer, right from the time he wants to select his car to get a test drive to the time he gets the car delivered, as we call it, discovery to delivery, digitally done for him, with obviously manufacturers, banks, dealers, and companies like us all working together as partners to get this enabled for all vehicle buyers, two-wheelers, cars, et cetera. So I see a massive opportunity, and that's where our investments are going in what we call digital transformation, which is really marrying the digital and the physical, and that's why this whole phygital theme. I think the one thing everybody must know that every physical company is trying to get digital, and it's ironic that every digital company is trying to partner with the physical. So there's no digital and there's no physical in my mind. Everyone works together in partnerships to make this phygital experience, possible for all consumers. I think that's all we all strive for and work towards, right? Providing the best for all our customers. As I said, I just want to part with, I'm really optimistic about the auto industry. I think the number of trends which leads me to tell that we have the best years ahead of us, the next 4, 5, 6 years. We are doing our best to invest in products and services to serve our customers better. Once again, thank you for everybody joining in. This is what I wanted to say. And I look forward to hearing from all of you and learning from all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanghi, for a very insightful inaugural address to kick off the future retailer, vehicle buying in the digital world. I think it would be fair to say that resilience, thy name, is the Indian automotive industry, and there is no better time to be a customer for automobiles in our country. So we move on to our next speaker. I'd like to invite Mr. Harshvardhan Sharma, Head Auto Retail Practice, Nomura Research Institute, to provide a consultant's perspective at the Future Retailer conference today. Over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you so much, Atul. Pleased to be here, and it's a privilege to be sharing the forum with all of you. At the outset, congratulations, Mr. Sanghi, for the successful IPO. And I'm sure it will open the floodgates for many more auto players, and how it should be. And I completely couldn't agree more to all the areas which you mentioned. It has been indeed an year of resilience, and it was sort of a double whammy, because the auto sector per se wasn't really on a high trajectory before the pandemic came. There were internal challenges, regulatory environment, etc., which we were sort of migrating towards. And then lo and behold, we we entered into another round of adversity. However, as Atul was also mentioning, the resilience has been definitely stronger than ever. And when you have nowhere to go, the bounce back is the only option. And in that sense, our rebound indices in the economy also have been moving up. Today's presentation, in fact, Mr. Sanghi, whatever you touched on, I also have some of that in my presentation. But primarily, I'm going to talk about a series of interviews that we've been doing, especially post-COVID, with a lot of stakeholders in the value chain, consumers, dealers, OEMs alike, and not in India, but globally as well. And then we can possibly delve into how that's been panning out with each of us in our industries. So with that, let me just switch on to a presentation. Please let me know if my screen is visible. Atul, is
yes,
it
Mr.
visible?
Sharma, visible. We can see it.
All right. Thank you so much. So with that, I have a quick 20 slider and I'll not take more time. I'm going to talk a little bit about us. What are the mega trends that we observe? Some of the new buyer personas, which we are seeing, and therefore what lies ahead. So very quickly talking about us, we are a management consulting firm established in 1965 with a global footprint. Because we are Japanese lineage, we are headquartered in Tokyo. However, in India, we've been present since 2011, and we work with across the mobility value chain. Automotive is our specialization, as I mentioned. There are other areas such as industrial machinery, electronics, CPG, etc. In these areas, we collaborate with many clients, and we cover the entire spectrum from upstream, midstream, and downstream. So right from corporate strategy and planning to R&D, product development, manufacturing, customer touchpoint in downstream, marketing, media, branding, and then new mobility, of course, which has been touching our lives. So right from strategy planning to deployment of these areas. While today's discussion and the sessions today and tomorrow are largely going to be on the downstream, but I think midstream and upstream, especially in the wake of semiconductor challenges and so on and so forth, definitely have been impacting the downstream area from the midstream and upstream side as well. Moving quickly to mega trends. So just a quick snapshot of the industry. We estimate at least a positive growth for this year. And I'm quoting JATO Dynamics here. So we're looking at at least a 3.35 million growth, hopefully riding on the waves of demand rebound, as I was mentioning. So one is the natural buoyancy of our markets itself. Desire of owning personal mobility has never been stronger. Fortunately, we all have, at most of the dealerships, there is a healthy inventory. And of course, we are just at the corner of the seasonality surge, and new launches will continue to drive this. In terms of highlights, we saw Ford's situation. Regulatory, we also saw push from PLI and macroeconomic interventions. In terms of entry of new players such as Ola Electric and Tesla. These were some highlights. And then, of course, the supply chain crisis, component shortage and global supply chain issues, and again, geopolitical issues. So those were some deterrents. However, we do see going forward a positive impact panning out, at least for this year. Largely, these are the 6 trends which we observe. And this is basis the interviews that we've been having in the value chain. I'm going to talk about all of these 6 in details, but just a quick snapshot. First one is the digitization of customer journey. So this is definitely in the works, and it still needs more tailoring. Also, we are seeing evolution of the sales teams. Manufacturers, dealers do realize the merit in having an evolved and efficient sales team. I'm going to talk what that means later in the document. Also, one of the trends that has been definitely working out well for everyone is the new retail formats. So the customer experience centers, more frugal and dynamic sort of investment. Also, multi-brand retail. Definitely, this is something which has been around the corner. And in after sales, we've seen this picking up very well. And in sales, this is something which, from a regulatory perspective, we need some intervention. And then most of the dealer groups and OEMs would be looking forward to this. What we also see is consumer activism on diversity and inclusion. And this is one area which I will also detail out later. And finally, on the omni-channel, a true omni-channel experience, what it means and what kind of investments or what kind of infrastructure needs to go here. So talking about the digitization of customer journey, as Mr. Sanghi was also mentioning, consumers are fairly familiarized with online experiences now across all categories, and they expect automotive to at least follow suit, if not exceed expectations. And in that sense, a lot of touch points which exist for the customer journeys, right from the top of the funnel, sort of to say, to the conversion end. At both of these ends, there have been interventions in the past, and that's going to continue. But most of it because the e-commerce players, the Amazons, and their likes have been raising the ante, and there's a lot of catching up, frankly, which auto sector has to do. Whether talking about the engagement tools, whether it's the vehicle configurator, AR, VR provisions, merchandising, digital sales consultant, gamification program, all of these manufacturers have tried in piecemeal manner. What is required is figuring out how this can be truly integrated and at least met with the category code which exists for e-commerce. Moving on to evolution of sales teams. So this is definitely happening and not really a COVID impact, but more so an evolution of the industry perspective. So we see new sales consultants and new team leaders focus from OEMs, which means efficient, innovative, and most important, empowered teams. So OEMs and dealers do understand the merit of having these revised manpower norms. So whether we talk about an Apple genius kind of a role, many manufacturers have been in talks with dealers about this, and dealers also understand and realize that there needs to be personnel who can go beyond the mandate of just sales and who can build a truly immersive and emotional connect. And at the same time, the stereotype of sales consultant and sales manager also seems to be going away. So there is although the focus on sales will continue. However, finding again a more relationship orientation than transactional is something which a lot of efforts from OEMs, not only in India and globally, we are also seeing. Coming to the emerging customer experience centers. So whether it's the third-party online marketplaces for used cars and the immersive customer experience centers. So those are areas where we see a lot of focus on, whether it's agile, cost-effective, and innovative retail options in terms of online stores, in terms of pop-up mobile stores, experience lifestyle stores, dealership at home, digital dealerships, and third-party aggregators. So all of them actually are different archetypes in themselves. And in that sense, for example, if we were to pick the experience store, it definitely gives the window to engage on brand history and high street access to the OEMs. And dealers globally and in India, we are seeing an orientation towards a better real estate usage, or the KPI here is sales per square feet. So on those terms as well, there's been tremendous focus on what can be done. Do we really need 20,000 square feet dealerships? What is the need for what is the need for such kind of infra? Can this be done? And all of them we are observing all of them do have their distinct character, and a lot of effort is ongoing on each of these formats. Talking about multi-brand retail. So again, the concept of MBOs is not really new. However, in after sales, fortunately, this is penetrating first, and with the regulatory hurdle clearing, hopefully, we should see some traction on the sales side as well. The benefits to OEM and dealers are fairly well understood. Frankly, dealers want it. They realize the efficiency which will bring for them. And for OEMs also, we've seen in other markets, and this is not something which is new to the universe. But in India, there is definitely a lot of talks, at least in our client circles, where they are toying with the idea, not only for after sales, but sales as well. Finally, moving to a very interesting topic. This is about diversity and inclusion and consumer activism. This we are also seeing in automotive, just like we saw in other brands. So next generation customers, millennials and Gen Z, are very sensitive towards gender equality, equity, and inclusion. And therefore, dealerships globally are becoming cognizant of this. So providing a gender neutral customer experience, inclusion for all, balancing of gender ratios, and then providing a safe and progressive work culture for LGBT candidates. These are some trends which we read about global, but we do believe, and this is again based on series of interviews and stakeholder conversations in India. Next generation will appreciate such kind of differentiation, and it checks in both from a societal inclusion perspective, as well as there are business merits for it. It helps create a unique brand identity for the players. And finally, moving on to the omnichannel 2.0. So a lot has been said about omnichannel and what it means for the value chain. However, the challenges of change of hands of customer, so who owns the experience, still remain. Again, on new retail concepts, we've been seeing ideas on direct to consumer, social e-commerce, home deliveries. These sort of conversations are still.
Ragvi ko bol do ki I have joined.
So these sort of conversations are still not. They still need some more ironing. And finally, on the digital technologies, so inclusion of fintech, inclusion of technology in retail. That's also something which is which needs some more ironing and connection of some more dots. Finally, in terms of what kind of buyer personas remain, so largely we would like to classify them in 4 distinct categories. The value seekers still remain, which are the cost-conscious customers. They remain highly value-driven and typically change between 5 to 7 years. There are true purists or auto passionates who change their cars between 2 to 5 cycles, so shorter cycles, and they prioritize quality and features over value. The legacy customers or the shopper driven again emerge as a persona, which we are seeing continuing at in the retail cycles. And finally, the flaunters. What has changed though is in terms of if we were to segment them in terms of what do they need. So soft factors such as exclusivity, peace of mind, element of surprise, emotional and personal connect, premium feel, and quality and transparency are some of the sort of key buying factors, if you will, which we saw at least in this persona is very popular. And some of the hard factors such as the efficiency of operations and shorter turnaround times, flexibility and broader choice metrics are some of the factors, at least for the value seeker persona, we were able to also observe. What we saw in terms of their preference of channels, so traditional customers, as one may imagine, still do prefer the brick and mortar intervention compared to the online information seeker who do a lot of research and then eventually go to brick and mortar kind of arrangement. And then finally, the tech savvy consumers who like it truly contactless and would prefer rather not having a conversation, but just more a click and collect kind of orientation. Finally, moving on to what does this mean? So in terms of the phygital experience to say, right from, and these are all phases from maturity level. So from conventional dealership experience to a semi-digital, a digital flagship and intelligent stores. And this is basically with heat maps and all retail analytics kicking in. So various OEMs are at various sort of stages on this ladder, and majority of them are somewhere, at least that cluster of digital, where they agree that there should be a digital intervention, and they're trying quite hard to make it truly digital. However, as I mentioned, some of these challenges which exist in terms of fully integration of enterprise architecture, people, process, and tools, such kind of challenges still remain. Finally, in terms of what are the expectations after COVID or recently, they remain no different from what they've always been. In terms of, so from an OEM perspective, customer centricity still takes the center stage. A lot of focus on financial prowess and discipline, trust and loyalty, progressive thinking and mindset. And again, from a dealership perspective, all of these areas still remain relevant. And more so, the angle of trust in the wake of the exits which we saw recently, that remains the most studied element. A lot of deliberation on dealer contracts, a lot of deliberation on what's going to be the regulatory on that and what are the repercussions on that. So those areas we see dealer groups and OEMs very seriously having dialogues to resolve. Finally, in terms of what this means for from a P&L perspective across case. So for connected, in terms of possible downsides, from a revenue perspective for dealerships, we might see this bifurcation happening. However, in terms of the revenue upside, possibly more complex of sort of jobs. Similarly for autonomous. However, for electric, definitely there's going to be a high impact on profitability, as all of us can imagine. And possible areas what we see and hear from dealers could be opportunities to diversify on value-added services and thinking of true differentiation. I spoke about people, process, tools earlier, and this is one area where we feel and bases our conversations again with the industry players on what could be some of the interventions, what could lead to transformation in terms of capability augmentation, training, and an upskilling of dealerships in terms of experience design, smart SOPs, and empowerment of field teams, and also education again on how to handle digital marketing, digital technologies, and finally overall having an access to a broader toolbox of technology are some of the enablers which could benefit. And coming to the last slide, and this is what we have been advising the value chain players. So in terms of increasing customer touch points, there has to be a very extensive focus on MarTech. I think most of us are doing it. So MarTech remains one area where a lot of investments we are seeing. Also, in terms of alternate purchase channel, the unified customer experience across digital and conventional touchpoints needs strengthening, and a lot of deliberation is required on what does it really add value to have AR, VR, how much is it is actually making an impact, and therefore can this be axed, can this be consolidated? And finally, the first principles of customer retention, referrals, etc. All of these need to be data driven. So data is definitely going to play a big role. As we speak, all of the industry players are thinking about use cases on how data can really benefit, whether it's the customer lifetime value or other use cases. So with that, I'll end my presentation. Thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Some of these areas which I mentioned are not really new in nature. However, the idea was to bring about that these remain relevant today. And at the bottom of whatever we do, the terrain has to be human in nature. So that hasn't changed. So with that, let me hand it over to Shashank san, and let's carry on from here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just a quick change, Mr. Sarmah. First of all, thank you for your session. We'll call on Mr. Sanjay Bhan to take over now, and Mr. Shashank san will join us a little later after Mr. Bhan's address. So I'd like to invite Mr. Sanjay Bhan, Head Global Business at Hero MotoCorp. Sir, if you can, we look forward to your address.
So thank you. Thanks a lot upfront, and thank you very much, Harsh, for a very interesting insight. Am I audible to everyone? Is my voice okay?
Yes, Mr. Bhan.
I've been having a bad throat for a bit, and I hope I'm audible.
You are audible, Mr. Bhan. Yes.
So So great words, Vinay. I think it's indeed a very interesting time that we are all operating in. I'm sure that there couldn't have been a bigger challenge thrown at the auto industry. We've gone through a whole bunch in the last 5 years. There's been a full-on, like the typical Hindi film melodrama. You know, there was everything. There was action. There was all sort of turmoil. There was BS6. There was the whole bunch of crazy things that could have happened. And yes, and like Atul mentioned, resilience is the key word here. And I think the industry bounced back, is fighting hard. And these are very interesting times. So, really, when Deepangshu talked about future mobility, and I was tempted to really jump into it and say, hey, there's a whole bunch that needs to be done, and there's a lot that is already happening all around us. What is it that you want me to talk about? So as I was thinking about the subject, I actually put down a pretty 52 slider presentation, but I'm not going to dump that on all of you. I think I'll be happy taking questions. But yeah, it was a couple of points that I really wanted to make. Now, the whole piece on phygital isn't something into the future. It's right there. I think for all of us who are in the middle of this particular change, and I know Vinkesh himself is a very big time dealer, and he understands this probably is much better than any one of us here, is the fact that the dealership model of the future will need to change. It's not that dealers are going to be replaced, but they will have a very different role to play. And I think this whole change about phygital is right now happening. What we should be discussing honestly about the future is what is the next level of phygital? The phygital is already there. The customer journeys have already been altered. There is a whole bunch that's happening, including I think Harsh was talking about. No, I think it was you, Vinay, who talked about approval of financing online, etc. The fact is that today financial approvals are not basis the ability of a person to pay, but are basis the intent to pay. There are psychometric tools that are in play, not just in India, but elsewhere outside of India, and have the benefit of operating in several markets outside of India, 40 markets. We have at least about 4 or 5 markets where psychometric tests are the final word on approval of financing. So we are in the middle of a very massive phygital surge. What is important and what needs to be debated today, I think this is the right forum. And I just see Shashank has also joined for the entire industry to, deliberate upon where is the next stop? Where is this phygital going to lead? In my mind, phygital is what is happening today. The future is not going to be phygital. It's going to be phygital 2.0. In fact, the way I see it, I would assume phygital essentially is by default, the very word phygital is, there's still the physical part which is ahead of the digital part. You actually got to reverse it. Digital has to be first. The future of mobility retail has to be digital first. And that's the way we need to construct our thinking. That's the way we need to model our dealerships of future. That's the way we need to structure our frameworks for creating an enabling environment for the future mobility to look like. And I think that's a discussion we should all have today and make best use of this time. So instead of boring you with another 20 odd or 52 slides that I have, I'm going to just, or maybe I'll show you a few just to give you a flavor of where we are today and where we are headed. If you can allow me to display. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see it, sir.
Yes.
Let me just go to the ones that I really want to spend time on. So this is the phygital world that we are talking about. Now, what is happening here? The traditional, showrooms, which is what I call the real estate, is giving way to real experience. And I think we heard Harsh talk about the experience stores and experience centers. From maintaining SKUs, and this is not any specific car model, Shashank, this certainly is not Maruti, so don't worry about it. This from managing stocks and inventories, we are now managing to minimal stocking, basically pure play experience at showrooms are the experience centers. From seeing the vehicles, physical touch and feel, all that is taken a backseat now. I think the whole world around us is transforming, and I guess COVID was the biggest catalyst in this. I mean, we talked about what all damage it did. But from a digital or conversion of a physical to a digital world, COVID did some miraculous things. Looking at color options, what are people looking at? Color shades and material cards, and this is done digitally. minimum trim levels to customizing whatever you choose, whatever you need. From actual test rides to simulated rides. And this is a reality. This is happening right around us. From financing based on documentation and ability of a consumer to pay, financing bases his intent. Psychometric tests give away who needs to be financed because he's intending to pay back. From physical exchange evaluation bits to digital, and it's all happening around us right now as we speak. Data is being fetched from OBD devices, and this is reality. And as we get into OBD2, it'll be even more sharper and stark. Physically visiting the workshops, probably now most of this is going to be done digital. Yes, there will be a need, but when you talk about electric vehicles, the need itself has been eliminated. There's very little to be done in an electric vehicle format for which you necessarily need to go a workshop. So the future, what does it really look like? Frankly, like I've put it here, it's actually a shift, a big meta shift from being phygital to digital first. And that's a journey that all of us must embark upon. So there'll be roles that we define. And I'm going to stop here. I've kind of done this. And I think Vinay talked about discovery to delivery model. And that's exactly what is happening. The new customer journeys are discovery to delivery. And they are happening right now. It's not about future. It's what is happening right now, right across. I mean, closer home, I'm not going to get into Ola, but that's yet to happen. But let's talk about Ather. We all know about Ather. Hero itself is invested in Ather pretty deeply. So as a company, their first module was to go pure play digital. They went digital first. It's only now that they have also realized to scale up, they would need a physical support, and therefore expansion into dealer networks. And that's what they've been expanding rapidly over the past few months. And that's where the marriage is happening. So their approach to business has been the digital first approach. And I'm sure the way, and from whatever we've gathered in more recent times, Ola is precisely doing that. They are approaching the market from a consumer first or from a digital first approach. I think the entire thinking is hinging and pivoting on, are we looking at the customer and then trying to work out our systems backwards? If we are going to approach the future with the current mindset of, by the way, there is this physical infrastructure, how do we integrate more digital into it and make it phygital? I think we'll get it all wrong. We should not be taken by another surprise. The industry is not prepared to take surprise after surprise. The industry of mobility, not just in India, but globally, it's about time to challenge the current status quo and move a little ahead and do a step change up front and try and question some of these premises. Try and look at the entire context from a digital first point of view, and then try and see how you need to now be in the physical bit to make sure that you get the full entire 360 around it covered. Instead of approaching it from, okay, so now we have a physical entity, how can we digitize that? The digital transformation, Vinay, that you are seeking, or as you were trying to communicate, is not going to be achieved if we continue to be in the zone of phygital. It has to be digital first, and that's where the entire thinking has to be very sharply defined. So that's it from me. Like I said, I'm not going to bore you with too many slides. I'll just leave it to the house, and you can ask me any questions. If there are any queries, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Bhan, for a very interesting presentation showcasing the change that we will all witness in the future. It's now my great pleasure to invite Mr. Shashank Srivastava, Shashank-san, Executive Director, Sales and Marketing, Maruti Suzuki India, for his address that we are looking forward to. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I will like to present through a mix of talk and some slides of what we believe will be the direction of the future auto retail. So I hope the slides are visible.
Yes, Shashank, we can see it.
Yeah. So here we go. Basically, I think Sanjay also spoke about digital, and then of course that probably the direction has to be digital first. So we have sort of a mixed data on this, and I think the jury is still deliberating whether it will be pure digital or is it physical.
Gaurav, can you switch off?
So let me.
Putting an echo on Shashank's voice. Gaurav, I think your microphone is on. You can go on mute. Shashank, please carry on.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay. So first of all, we have to look at it from the changing consumer behavior. And it is not just influenced by the digitization or the internet, but also by various other factors, including culture, the globalization, the convergence which we are seeing now in various buying experiences. And we can also now deliberate upon the various formats of retail which are possible and and of course the new trends which is what is the topic of today's discussion. I think finally we will conclude. This is our conclusion that we'll probably have to do a balancing between physical and digital. So first, the changing consumer behavior. I'm going to take you through these slides pretty fast. These are not heavy slides. It's just to bring the topics which have impacted our thought process. So what we find is a lot of change. Consumer behavior is changing dramatically, and I think it's being affected by market trends and also of course, digitalization. Mostly we talk about digitalization, but I think consumer behavior is being affected by the entire range of technology that is he's being exposed to. So 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared, been researched and found. And therefore, what we conclude from here is that we will find also in our industry a lot of companies disappearing because they have not been able to visualize the future. And I'm going to give you more of an Indian perspective. I think the audience today would largely be looking at the Indian auto industry. The average age of India's population is around 29. It's one of the youngest nations in the world. And the expectations of the millennials, whether it is design or product, is entirely different. And in fact, as I mentioned, the change in technology is changing the consumer behavior drastically. Currently, of course, we have about 620 million active internet users. We have the cheapest internet in the world. It's the second highest in terms of internet usage. And I think that's going to have a big impact. It's already having a big impact on how the retail process happens in our country. People say that we have a large rural market, yes, and it is thought that maybe rural customers are not that tech savvy, but as far as internet is concerned, more rural internet consumers are there than they are in urban India. Customer is, of course, influenced greatly by the availability of the retail experience in other areas. And I think we would all have experienced all, if not all, some of these which are shown on the slide here. And I think the convenience which consumer is now experiencing is now getting translated even in other areas of high value products and more involved product buying. So there was a time, of course, when we saw waiting periods of 8 to 10 years. But now, of course, you can buy it at the click of a button. It's just that this is the level not only of digitalization of the buying process, but the entire value chain. The traditional car buying, there was a study which said that Americans hate car shopping so much that they rather give up sex. And in fact, they prefer to pay taxes than do the traditional car buying. And I think that this model has been a question mark. It's not just US. In UK too, people have said they would rather go to the dentist than to the car dealer. And it's largely because the interaction that they had with the salespeople. So it is about the interaction that they get at the sales point. And as you can see, even members of Congress are now considered to be more trustworthy than car salespeople. In India, and this is just an intention of whether they will purchase vehicle virtually. India surprisingly has a very high percentage of people saying that they would prefer to buy virtually. It's 27% for Indians as compared to even more advanced economies like Germany, USA, 16, 17%. And in person, of course, you see a very large percentage. And I think that's because a large number of people across the world, they would still like to have the touch and feel of the product. So I think digital, getting digital is rising, probably is going to become even bigger going forward. But because of the high value of the product, I think there is still a lot of scope for people saying that they would rather have a touch and feel of the product itself. 70% people, why do people still go to dealers, despite the fact that they may not consider that buying process all that good? It's surprising. One of the research across the world showed that 70% think online prices are higher, not lower. And the number of visits to the dealer is about 2 to 3 before they buy the car. And 70% end up buying the car from the first dealer visited. In fact, the research further states that people would prefer to buy it from the same salesperson that they interacted with. So the role of the dealership is really valuable. And I think even in the online purchase, you would find that even going forward, people would like to, 58% said they would choose dealership over other channels. Of course, a lot of people also say that they would buy it directly from OEM website, but through the dealers ultimately, because the test drive and the delivery will happen through the dealers. And consumers, 49% of consumers above 30 years of age, they will still select the traditional dealer. So this is just an indication of the importance of dealership, and also the reasons of digital buying give us a very, very good idea of what the future would be. It's largely a convenience, speed, and ease of usage that people prefer digital. So that is something which is, and this is across the world. I think, except in US, where the research showed, as in the previous slide, I showed the research, it's a high percentage of people who want to avoid visiting the dealership. They would rather, as they said, give up sex than go to the dealership. But India, I think it's still quite far from there. And before buying, although the search, 80% of the people are searching online, 52% visit dealer website. It's becoming more digital, of course. From a dealer perspective, this is based on dealers' interaction and research. 59% dealers feel the traditional model is outdated, and the future their future role will change. And I think Sanjay also mentioned it in his talk about the future role of the dealership will change. And in fact, 46% people say that third-party models will play an important role in future sale. So what are the various formats of retail that we see? Of course, we have dealers and entrepreneurs. This is the current model. You also have seen a dealer as an execution agent. I think one large manufacturer, a very large German manufacturer of luxury cars, they have decided in India to go through this model where dealer is just an execution agent. The stocking, the ordering by the consumer all happens on the OEM website. And third is the OEM owning retail, which is, I think, Tesla does that across the world, and maybe some other manufacturers may also be considering it. And the fourth part, which is actually a mix, is OEM partnership with third parties. Now, these are the forms of retails which we have currently. We have, of course, dealers and entrepreneur. This is the traditional one, which is currently there. This is the Maruti Suzuki arena. We also have dealers and execution agent, where the OEM does the selling, that manages the inventory, directly invoices to the customer, And for the customer, the advantage is, of course, greater price transparency, lower waiting periods, and the dealer does things like a display of vehicles or test drive, and generally having a very low inventory cost or none at all. Then there is, as I mentioned, the OEM owning retail model. And here the advantage, of course, is direct relationship with consumers and a better control over operations. And we have the third party where, for example, the subscription model. This is just an example. It could be leasing, it could be rentals, it could be whatever, this through the third parties. And we have, for example, in a subscription model going through the third party, which is the ALD and Oryx. We also have certain types of channels which are like differentiated retail channels based on the type of customers. We have, for example, Nexa for the better experience. We have True Value, used cars, you have commercial as well, and also different sizes. And I think that is one debate which is happening in the industry. What would be the size of the dealership? Because if it's digital, you don't need a place at all. Or very minimal size. And I think currently we have, of course, depending on the size of the market and also the type of consumer. And it's not just the size of market, but the type of consumer also, where we have a main outlet, or we may have something in slightly emerging markets, or even in the rural areas. And we have across the world examples of really large showrooms as well, and they are currently doing extremely well. This is, I think, South Bhavan at least 5-6 times in the last 5 years, and they continue to do great business because the consumers have it has got a different effect on the consumer psyche. We have, of course, things like the experience center, and I think Sanjay also spoke about that experience center, how it is becoming more of an experience rather than, some people have gone to a great extent to have an absolutely different type of experience center. And I'll come to that a little later. And the digital retail experience, which is like basically getting all the things, including finance options, extended warranty, etc. And customers can choose to buy the vehicles directly online. This is like really a pure digital sort of setup. So what are the
Shashank-san, we can't hear you.
We have this type of trends, which is an example from China, Neo House, which serves as a showroom, but also as a clubhouse. So it's made of community and based. Okay.
Yeah, Shashank, maybe you will want to switch off your video. Maybe that will help, because otherwise. You switched off your audio.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm using another laptop. Yeah. So what I was saying was that now we have the community-based selling even, although the experience will be largely digital, but also you will experience something else like a community interaction, cafes, library, living room, and so on. And these are like real examples. Yeah.
We've lost you again, Shashank.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just trying to say now flip the slides.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is something which you see there. This is an experience center. We have the Lexus Intersect, that examples of which are there in Tokyo, Dubai, New York, basically showing even things like art or design, even cuisine. This is inside view, but these are of course rarer, And the other option, which is all about Tesla, it is just about delivering the car. So you can actually download a Tesla app, and that also is the gives the key to open. So you just get the car, you open it, and you can drive it. You don't even have the requirement of a key. So there are different forms which are being tried. And I come to the final part of the presentation, which is about balancing physical with digital. And we have the entire customer journey. I think Sanjay also showed it in a different form. And things are changing. And the big shifts which have happened already and which are going to accelerate are there on the slide here. Physical experience going to connected experience, paperwork to digitization, and things like interactions completely into personal life. And we have, of course, at Maruti Suzuki, the option of digitizing 24 out of the 26 touch points. We have done that, including finance. And finance, by the way, we are almost 25% of our financing is now being done online. And that is something which is really being held by even things like AI and ML. They have helped us, and the banks are very happy because there's a low cost ramped up the entire process of financing much quicker. So physical experience going to connected experience, and these are real examples that you see both on the left and the right hand side. So you have more intuitive websites. You have hyper local marketing. You have, of course, many benefits to the dealer as well as the consumers, whether it is, the control of the discount levels or access to Maruti Suzuki tools, technology. Today, we have almost 1/3 of the sales coming through the web inquiries. And as Sanjay said, the even welcome is in the physical showroom is now getting digitized, sort of. And even digital demo, whether we have a point for digital demonstration, you even have Maruti Suzuki Smart Finance, which I talked about. You have, of course, large display hubs. These are like making the in-store experience quite exciting. And from paperwork to paperless, and even customization zones where you can actually choose your accessories and you can have a car configuration. So all these points, I think, is simply about retaining and enhancing the charm of physical. So for interaction becoming hospitality or accessories selling becoming more personalized, and even the experience of getting the car delivery being extremely good. So I think my conclusion is, one, that demographics, technology, edge computing is basically where you can do a large amount of data crunching in localized while still being on the cloud as far as software and the main data is concerned. And connectivity and global convergence, they are influencing consumer behavior. And these are different in different segments, different countries, different geographies, and that is therefore we believe that there will be no one form going forward. And there will of course be a tectonic shift towards digital, but physical dealership will continue to exist. And what we need to do for physical dealership is to reimagine and reinvent them as experiential centers. And also that the multi-format, multi-channel, and multi-dimensional dealerships will thrive based on the product and geography. And I think going forward, we will find the computing and connectivity powers along with analytics of AI, ML, leading to a much better customer experience, provided the OEMs are able to predict the direction. That's what we are trying to do at Maruti Suzuki. So we just keep an eye on the emerging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shashank-san, for a very informative talk and giving us the insight into how Maruti will understand the customer psyche. I'd now like to call on our final speaker for today, and I'd like to invite Mr. Vinkesh Gulati, President, Federation Automobile Dealers Associations, to conclude our inaugural session. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Atul. Really a pleasure being here. I feel my job has already been completed by most all these speakers. Vinay has said the things right very aptly. And I'll thank Deepangshu and Vinay both for taking such a good topic, which is the need of the hour. We as an association have always been saying that things are changing, the dealerships are changing. Maybe the age-old way of working, of having a Taj Mahal type showrooms and having 100, 120 team in a dealership to run, which is actually needed for a factory to run, which earns crores in years. So things are changing, and I feel the manufacturers and the dealers have all to come together and make the change happen. So before even starting, thanks Vinay for the digital transition you were talking about. At FADA as an association, we are working now trying to shift the registration also towards faceless and digital. So I feel like Shashank-san said, the vehicle choice or the comparison is already digital. Insurance, finance was pending, which most of the manufacturers have already done. The bankers have also coming. But one big compliance issue in India is still the registration part, where a lot of signatures are there and red tape is there, and involvement of local RTO, sending papers and all are there. At FADA, we are trying to push that also out, but you know that's one big earning point for a lot of people in India, majorly the important people in India. So it's taking time, but hopeful we'll be able to make that shift also. Additional thanks Harshvardhan ji, and I'll request you and the Nomura to please do advocacy on whatever you have shown us today. Multi-brand outlet, omni-channel. So all the dealers were always thinking of having a multi-brand dealership, which in India has never been a concept. I don't know if that concept will work or not, but at least the trial is a must. Even a manufacturer who has 3 brands like Audi, Volkswagen, Skoda and all that, even they are not trying that. So wherever they don't lose, if a customer walks and buys a Skoda or an Audi, they earn from all the brands. But they are also not so adventurous to try such thing. I feel Nomura can, if you all can help and make that change happen, I feel that would be a part of the future of retail. So thanks for your inputs, and maybe that can help us a lot. So thanks again, Deepangshu, for such a good topic. And I hope this, after this 1 hour session, I feel it is now 1.5 hour session, there'll be a lot of inputs for all the manufacturers and dealers and all the listeners to go ahead with it. So again, starting, good morning to you all. The conference on the future retailer vehicle buying in a digital world will make us rack our brains on how we prepare for the disruptions in auto retail trade. So what are things which we'll have to unlearn, because the retail industry, the dealership had been around for more than 60 years. And what are those which we'll have to learn afresh, keeping the future in mind? Because we should consider the customer expectations are changing very rapidly. Digitization is the buzzword today. Everybody talked about it. Things like connected vehicle, electrification are driving the transformation at an unprecedented speed. We had always been discussing the future changes in the vehicle buying, customer expectations, dealers' retail style. But I feel the pandemic, like already said, has been the biggest catalyst, and it has further accelerated the ongoing transformation and leapfrogging the adoption of digitally enabled car buying and online sales model. So I feel everybody would agree that online sales, which was always looked upon as nice to have, it was like a drawing room of a home, but have never been used very efficiently. Now it has become a must-have for even a smaller dealership also, whereas we had seen bigger conglomerate dealerships, OEMs working on it. But today, even a two-wheeler dealer sees the importance of a digital process. Maybe not a website, but at least the Google location, geo-local advertising, all the things is important for everybody. And moreover, the current crisis has raised there are a lot of issues, like we have to become cost conscious, and our facilities, like it's too big. We have to make a critical decision on further outlet consolidations, leaner retail formats, direct customer access, and alternative sales model. I feel with 1.5 days of this conference, we'll work on some of these points and come up positively for that. So, like I said, Taj Mahal is over, and there are a lot of manufacturers who are working on, like Shashank showed, that e-retail concept or the R-retail concept. So we'll have to work towards a smaller cube type showrooms, which are present nearer to the customer at most of the and at many of the locations, but a smaller setup, maybe 500 to 1500 square feet, with the kind of digital trends we are seeing. So VR, AR, whatever, we can put it in that small showroom and make a process as easy, as convenient for a customer to choose the vehicle. And then when he takes the delivery, then he can think of going to a bigger dealership where he can see the vehicles. So even EY survey shows that vehicle delivery at showrooms is diminishing. So it's now 59% customers have started choosing convenience over celebration and prefer home/office deliveries at their vehicles. So in fact, larger formats can be present outside the city limits, which can act as an experience center and give customers one more reason to come out of their houses for a nice family picnic. We as an industry, so everybody is there, the only manufacturer, the analyst, the media, we as an industry should urge the government to plan large auto zones just outside the city, which acts as a family outing point for customers with enough choices of vehicles cutting across brands and categories. So it's already present in US and a lot of more countries abroad. And also one big concern for us, which is the current environment issue and the strict government compliances of pollution and all that. I feel the service centers will also have to be shifted outside the city limit. So if we have some auto zones, we get the solution on this side also. So the automotive dealer community has preserved through many downturns before, but clearly no one was prepared for the pandemic and the ensuing lockdown. But now the dealers have begun to explore ways to increase revenue streams by optimizing their business models. We are more willing to embrace change and disruption than most people give us credit for. I personally am so proud of the resiliency, innovation, and determination that the auto retail industry has shown on behalf of their brands and their customers. Dealers see these adaptations as overly positive to the operations and their customer interactions, which is why I have no doubt that this innovation and flexibility will endure long past the pandemic. A latest change Shashank is aware of, one of the big dealer has gone ahead with an IPO, which we haven't heard for the past, 3 decades. So I feel such things will more happen. The innovation or the out of the box thinking in dealership will also continue. So going further, a lower cost structure is a prudent habit and need of the hour. So lower dealership inventory, less traditional advertising, and leaner dealership manpower, because digital is in. So like Shashank said, out of 28, 26 is already digitalized. It's online. So we don't need so much manpower at the dealership to give, because the customer inflow will be less. Or if they were coming 5 times for buying a vehicle, now they'll be only 2 times for buying the vehicle. So a salesman who has a productivity target of 4 or 5 can easily be shifted to 8 or 9. So the number of manpower will be needed less. So it can help in overall leaner running operation cost also. So I'm even happy that FADA's regular training and advocacy to members for being financial prudent has helped a lot. And even manufacturers have realized that a healthy dealer is an asset to them and their viability is the most important KRA. With smartphones becoming more affordable and data becoming easily available, customers in urban and rural markets are more comfortable getting in touch with dealerships through phone and digital routes. Even though test drives are now happening at the click of the button and at the comfort of customers' home, the last mile process of vehicle purchase will remain physical. As for a country like ours, it's a high ticket purchase. This is also because buying a new vehicle is a family decision. And for Indians, it is also an emotional decision. Physical setups will always be important as the customers will look at the trust and bond with the dealership and its team. The brand plays a big role, but dealership team too play a key role in giving the customer that personal touch and assuring them that they are there to serve. It's clearly evident the way the market share changes from city to city for the same brand, because the dealer also makes a difference because of that. So while customers today are asking for sharing brochures on WhatsApp, doing video call, WhatsApp chats, the process right up to vehicle selection is seeing a major shift. But the final touch and feel of the vehicle will see physical interaction continue to happen. So I agree, the color choice can be done online, but the physical vehicle's color and the color shown on your screen, it could be RGB or CMYK, normally is not the same. So still, I feel the dealership, like Shashank said, will be an important part before in the buying decision. So McKinsey research across various geographies shows that 70% of customers see the ability to physical experience the car as the main reason for a dealership visit. Like I said, the car, the color choice, or even the sound of the vehicle. And even some customers are very finicky on the smell what they get in the car, the new leather smell, the new car smell. So that is also one important point where dealership visits are important today. Dealers need an even stronger focus on value-added activities to stay relevant and establish even closer relationship with their customers. OEMs and dealers should invest in enhanced customer analytics, which provides the insight and context that allows to better serve customers where they are along their car buying journey. If we know the customer as he walks in, we can really make the difference and his experience delightful. And obviously, we'll have to need OEM support on this artificial intelligence thing. However, staying ahead of the current disruptions in automotive retail will require a lot more from both of us, OEMs and dealers, than simply moving their operations online or going direct. So like Sanjay ji said, it has to be first digital, then physical, but in the end, it has to be digital. Changing customer preferences and the non-linear speed of change make it difficult for OEM and dealers to transform their retail models. And it is safe to say that no single OEM or dealer has fully cracked the code yet. There are a lot of options, like Shashank said, direct to customer, experience centers, but still, there is no one final solution of this. So inaction, on the contrary, is not an option. A commitment to innovation in automotive retail is the imperative, and the time to get started is now. With this, I'd like to conclude my note. Thank you everyone for hearing me patiently, and looking forward to 1.5 days session for the benefit of our trade and the dealers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. You join all our other speakers in hitting the ball out of the park with your talk. Very, very interesting insights. Thank you so much once again. I'd now like to hand it over to Mr. Sharma, Harshvardhan, to moderate a Q&A session. We've got about 8 minutes, and I'll give an indication when we have 2 minutes left to conclude. Over to you, Harsh.
Thank you so much, Atul. So in the paucity of time, I would keep it short, but I think there's a lot of interest from the attendees to interact with the panelists and sort of discuss some thoughts. So probably what we can do is begin with Shashank-san, and then move to Mr. Sanghi, and then Mr. Gulati, if that order is okay. And in that capacity, Shashank-san, one of the questions which many industry players have been very curious on is the kind of innovation and scale that is required for digitization at Maruti is unprecedented. I don't think anyone else can do it at the scale Maruti does it. And yet Maruti has been at the forefront of driving innovation, digitization. So just wanted to take some learnings from Maruti Suzuki's case on how digitization panned and what are some of the challenges what we saw initially, teething troubles as one may call them, and how Maruti went about it. Thank you so much for your perspective on this.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think the challenge at Maruti Suzuki was actually larger because, as you know, the market leaders are generally wired to do better in terms of efficiency, productivity, and not really to confront disruption, because we have become market leaders by doing things better, by having more reliable products, better fuel efficiency, better value, so on and so forth. In fact, there is a famous book called Innovator's Dilemma, where they say that the market leaders have the toughest to confront new situations because the culture is not built around that, as compared to a startup or a new company who have much less to lose in a disruption. So one thing which we did very immediately was to accept this fact that we are not really wanting to confront disruption, and that somehow made all our manpower realize that in order to be competitive in the future, we need to embrace change. And that was the first step. And it was not about bringing in smart finance or virtual showrooms. It is first about change of mindset of employees. Then it is the change of mindset of all our associates together. In fact, we learned also a lot from our dealers, from our vendors, etc. And third is to realize that while we have to continue the business, we must have the agility to take on and digitize or accept new technologies, and that's what we try to do. So our focus is on consumer and also on the future consumer, and that is how we have implemented across our entire chain. So our focus, we have inventory management, whether it is design, whether it is production process. We have the RPA technologies, or we have the big technologies in retail, some of which I mentioned, including we are using AI and ML for a very rare. Yeah, and Harshvardhan ji, we have just begun. So while you say we are ahead, we are actually feel we are much behind the rate at which technology is changing, both from consumer perspective and also on the generally on the technology side across different aspects of manufacturing. So we are not relaxing, and we know that we have a big task at hand, and we will continue to make these efforts to become better and keep up and keep keep ahead and try to maintain our volumes and market share.
Thank you so much, Shashank-san, and wishing all the very best to the efforts. I'm sure as we embrace change and instead of fighting it, this will pan out quite favorably for any incumbent. So thank you so much for your perspective.
Thank you.
Just moving on to Mr. Sanghi, in terms of digital retail and particularly on data as a mode. So I think your organization has seen it all, done it all. The backbone is data and analytics. And in that sense, would just like to share to get some tenets on how as an organization, digitization or being the earliest adoption of digitization in being in your industry? How did that pan out, and what are probably some of these learnings which you think OEMs, dealers can also implement? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. And, as far as we are concerned, we're a digital company, and we partner with all the physical stakeholders like manufacturers, dealers, banks, et cetera, et cetera. And digital companies by force, data plays, a very important part in helping us serve our customers better. And we look at data in how we can help customers or other stakeholders in this journey of delivering a product or a service to a consumer, right? And how do we enhance that experience using data? I'll give you one example. Today, if you're selling a car or a vehicle on our platform, we have a big C2B, B2B online exchange where we auction 1 million vehicles a year. And if you're selling a vehicle on our platform, and as I said earlier, if you're selling it in a market like Cochin on our platform, and if the data tells us that this particular variant type vehicle, it could be a car, it could be a commercial vehicle, and thousands of make model variants, fetches a better price at Kolkata. And we have data to know the buyers in Kolkata for that product, that variant, that type will pay more in Kolkata. Then the seller in Cochin gets a better price. So that's one way of use of data, right? There is multiple other sources of use of data, right? I think clearly financing is one big thing, right? We talk about, Shashank talks about smart finance, and we look at financing. And, even Mr. Bhan is correct. Financing has got 2-3 angles to it. One is intent to pay and the ability of use of data and algorithms to decide whether there's an intent of the customer to pay. And the second is what kind of customers pay, what kind of customers don't pay. And that's again, use of data. So the core, digital companies, various sources of data, whether it is customer behavior, what kind of car, typical kind of customers, that's another sort of data for us. If a customer comes to Car Wale or Bike Wale or one of our platforms, what kind of customers buy what type of vehicles, what kind of profile of users, what kind of needs, or what are their needs in a particular product, if it's a mini SUV or a sedan or whatever kind of car, and what is their profile. And that data helps manufacturers and dealers, present their products to those set of customers. It's very targeted in that sense. So, data is an important part for the industry. We use mostly all the data we have serves our consumers or our manufacturers or dealers better. I think that's how we look at data.
Understood. Thank you so much. Quite interesting. And sorry, you're going to use the cliche that data is the new oil. And in that sense, everyone's probably who we're talking to is thinking about use cases, new areas such as usage-based insurance, etc. Provided IRDA clears it. What we've seen in the US, if you own a red coupe, chances are that the premiums are gonna skyrocket, and probably a Prius would be the safest option for an underwriter. And in that sense, I completely agree that data use cases monetization is something which definitely OEMs have a lot of catching up to do. Thank you so much for your perspective. Finally, moving.
We have about 60 seconds left.
All right.
So yeah.
Okay, I'll try and make it rapid turbo then. Mr. Gulati, thank you so much for sharing your perspective earlier. What I quickly wanted to know from you is, at Gemba, as we say in Japanese parlance, all the action is happening at your end, and all these nice to have strategies are designed, and then the dealership is where all the action is happening. So in your experience, both as a dealer yourself and as FADA president, what are some of the learnings that you could probably share, and some tenets for new entrants and OEMs to play by? Thank you.
So thanks, Harshvardhan, and very frankly, it's nothing new. We still feel the physical touch and the relationship what we develop at the dealerships are long run. And like most of you agree, if you buy the first vehicle at maybe 10 years before, whenever you change the vehicle, you tend to call the same consultant again. Even if the consultant is in the same brand or not, in the dealership or not, you still tend to call. And this is the relationship which we developed. So when I started going to the dealership, there was a salesman who taught me sir, we have to call him Chacha and Dada because he's coming from Gaon. And we have to create a relationship in that village to make him confident that if he's putting in his hard-earned money, he had saved for buying a car or even a bike 5 years, then today he has come. He should have that confidence in the dealership that I am putting in a safe investment. So you will find a lot of teenagers putting in lakhs in mutual fund and equity without even thinking. But when they have to buy a vehicle, they do a lot of research. So I feel the importance of dealers, as Shashank very clearly said, is there. No doubt it's there. We'll have to adapt with the changes. So there'll be still 20-25% fully digital customers who don't want to even leave their sofa and do everything. But still, India is a very different country as compared to the world over. When a customer comes to buy a vehicle, it's not him who buys a vehicle. It's his wife who buys a vehicle, his daughter, his son, his parents even. So I have seen a customer book a Thar, come to the showroom, and when the family came in, he had to shift to another product because his family said, this Thar is good for you, but we are all buying the vehicle, we want this. So that happens. And even the car color changes. A customer books a black color, and when their parents come and they say religiously it is not a good color, you'll have to buy a white. We see shifts happening. So it's whatever you say, how much digital you want to go ahead, first digital, last digital, middle digital. Physical relationship is the most important thing. I'll just sum up by giving you an example. Last year, my Faridabad dealership opened on 8th May between the lockdown. So because we are into industrial sector. So on 12th May, I had 15 walk-ins of customers who said in the lockdown, who said, yeah, I was getting bored in the home, but I just wanted to have a cup of tea with them. And whereas the OEMs instructed us that no physical touch, no tea serving in cup, use the paper cups and try to give only in sealed Tetra packs and all that. But they were not interested in all that. They said, let's sit down, chat for an hour and go. So this is a total different industry. It's not a smartphone or a TV or a fridge. It's a lifeline for them. The second most important thing for a person in India after home is a car. And you cannot digitalize it. I don't agree to that. So there will be some part which will shift to digital, but still the dealer, the physical presence would always be there. You'll find many dealers, premium car dealers selling from Delhi to Bombay and Calcutta. There would be many dealerships in between, but still they are doing it. So I feel physical is important, but no doubt if the digital can come in and improve the efficiencies, the cost of running dealership is lower, it will benefit the whole retail system and the customer too.
Understood. Very well put. Thank you, Mr. Gulati. I completely agree. I think the operator word between physical retail or digital retail is retail. First principles still remain relevant, and the terrain we still operate on is humanity. So completely on point and aligned there. With that, we close this discussion. Thank you so much for your participation. Much indebted for all of you, and hopefully the audience has got a very interesting perspective. With that, let me hand it over to Atul. Over to you, Atul, for the proceedings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harshvardhan, for an excellent presentation and also moderating our questions with the panelists very well in the limited time that we had. A very grateful and warm thanks to all our speakers at the inaugural session of the Future Retailer, Vehicle Buying in the Digital World, Mr. Sanghi, Shashank, Mr. Bhan, Mr. Gulati. Thank you all very much for making the time and speaking to us and to all the viewers and participants today. This concludes our inaugural session. And of course, we've got a lot more planned, so don't just leave yet. We now immediately move on to our panel discussion, which will be moderated by my editor and colleague, Deepangshu Sarmah from Mobility Outlook. And before I invite Deepangshu to begin the panel discussion, I just want to remind all of you that following the panel discussion, we will have a digital session on the topic of digitalization of the automotive retail ecosystem. It's my great pleasure now to invite Deepangshu to take over from here on.
Thank you so much, Atul, and thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Shashank-san. Thank you, Harsh. Thank you, Mr. Gulati. Truly appreciate your participation in the inaugural.